as David has indicated so clearly, I'm an old fella, and therefore I have a lot of history. That history is varied and colorful, and to me, a little bit boring, but it might be more interesting to you, because I lived it and it's gone, it's over. However, to people, most of you, I'm speaking mostly to the students, because I think they're the people who really I should be speaking to more than to the general public, so know my work and know my background. Yes, I have had over 121 personal shows all over the world. I've been given wonderful opportunities and prizes and museum shows, etc. Some of the catalogs are up here. You can look at afterwards, or you can also go to my website, which gives you a sort of historical overview of what happened to my work visually over the years. What I want to discuss tonight, above all, is why one would bother to be an artist. And that means questioning, what does the artist do? And there's a lot of different opinions about that. How does each artist decide best how to do their own research, their own way of being an artist, rather than being part of a group, or part of a movement, or part of the imitating what everyone else has done? And I'll start, I think, with saying a few things from this. This is a nice little book, which was made, I think, 8 years ago, based on conversations I had with a very nice, good, and I think important person from Portugal, Laura Castro, and she spent 3 days with me, and these are 3 different interviews she did with me. And a lot of critics and people who deal with the arts are pretty dopey and busy looking for a way to impose onto you what they think and get you to say it. Laura is really much more of a responsible historian and documenter of the art activity. And it's really very, very nice. But I just want to read 1 or 2 things that are in it, very briefly, because they center on some of, I think, the main issues that all people who are interested in the visual arts think about, worry about, ponder. But I want to start off first of all with 2 quotes, which I put in the end. One is, all our interior world is reality, and perhaps more so than our apparent world. And that's Marc Chagall. And then, art is limited by the infinite. Now, who the heck do you think said that? Make a guess. Take a guess. It was James McNeill Whistler. That long ago, that created that adventures. And both of these quotes lead me to another thing, is that what the artist does is not reproduce or document reality. The artist is creating a new reality. The artist's obligation is to make something of some significance, of some power, of some impact, that will add something to the world. Otherwise, knit something. Really. And I think that it's very hard for the younger artists today. I'm sure that many of you are worried about it. How do you make a living? How do you go forward? You're interested in one aspect or another of art, and at the same time, in the back of your mind, you think about how do I make something that will be thought of as successful, reach some audience, and be turned into some sort of an income. Let me tell you, that is not a new concern. That's not something that's new to this generation of art. It goes all the way back. Artists were always worrying about how to do that. Rembrandt had a terrible bankruptcy after being very successful. P.S. He made all his great paintings after he was broke. Okay? Remember that too. Goya had to work as a designer for the Queen's textile factory in order to make a living. Goya. So people all had to do something with this skill, this interest in manipulating visual components and making something new. I will go back to how do you find out where you are and what your work might look like. And what I do end up discussing is this monster called the art world, the art market. This former of taste, this former of clients, and this now pretty much standardized way of forming practitioners to provide product to their market. What I'm saying is very inflammatory. I don't know if you know that. You may not think so, but it is. Because a lot of very gifted people have been turned into drones producing product for a market. And I find it so sad, so tragic. It's taken away the authorship from the authors and turned them into drones producing product. Anyways, in this well, she asked me a question about the different ways of being an artist today. And she says, in a sense, talking about art becomes simple. Don't you think that in the present more and more forms of art need the text, the words to be understood? And I respond, that is what art has become about. It's about thinking up the idea, proposing the idea, writing up the idea. Nowadays, many exhibitions are about how I did this, what it means. I'm afraid that we're talking about different activities. When the discussion is about words, I'm allergic to it in the sense that although I can write well, although I can express myself, I think I start entering this other world of art activity, a sort of intellectual blackmail. The experts, the critic, curators say, if you do not understand what I'm saying, then you cannot understand art. I mean, it is this simplistic approach. They imply that either you hear my explanations and believe in it, or you are stupid, and you cannot understand. This about the people behind the art market are these experts. Many of them have never painted or drawn, or many have not even studied history of art. They become experts about this moment, this market, what's hip, what's cool. A lot of art dealers and art experts today have very little knowledge of art outside of this moment. And there are a few colleagues out there, and I think that Phyllis and others who know the market would agree with that. So what do you do? What do you do? You have to ask yourself, why am I in this racket? Why am I interested in going into a room and learning about perspective and color and form and anatomy? Why am I studying all this way of making art that is part of the past? Why? And if somewhere within you there's this secret urge to make something that no one else might have made, to add that little drop of new thought that remains, it's not transient. And you remember a lot of contemporary practice is transient, meant to be destroyed, meant to not be here. I always felt that artists wanted whatever they said to be seen by as many people in as many ears as they could, hoping that maybe along the line it would affect, influence, and help them see existence in a richer way. I'm not going to talk much more about this. I'll come back to all of this afterwards. It's very unusual for me to open a lecture this way, but I want to do so to set the stage for what I do. You know the way I think. I don't think that art is about reproducing reality. I don't think art is about clever ideas that are hip and chic. I don't think art's about political ideas. I think some artists have made some political art that was good. Guernica was made by great artists, and it was political. But most art that has too clear a subject, too clear a political subject, is married to the moment it was made and is not understood beyond the moment it was made. Okay, let's go look at what this fellow does. What did? Oh, Michael. Just to tell you, David told you about my being here in 1956. I traveled very little. I was 23 years old. I had no idea I was so good looking. I really did not. I didn't know I was like a pre-James Dean type. I didn't know that. And this was up on the balcony of a building, which is still there, the tower, near the Ponte Vecchio. And down below me, you cannot see it, but all the buildings had been blown up. In 1956 and 1957, all the buildings on either side of the Ponte Vecchio had been destroyed by the Germans in their retreat. And the Florence you see today, it's not the Florence I saw. I saw Florence still suffering from results of a violent and terrible war. People were humbler, simpler, kinder, and more socially responsible to one another. Next. This is one of the paintings I painted as a 23-year-old. Now, I think you can tell what it is. And it's big. It's about as big as, it's almost as big as that Shakespeare. And I was absolutely overwhelmed by the size and complexity and, to me, garish swoop of this monument. So I painted, or I tried to paint it. And I remember I was 23, trying to grab onto this totally new visual excitement I was getting. I'd never seen anything like this. Next. Here's another one, and this, I was trying to deal with, this was the same period, and this is giostra. You remember the giostra, no? Italians know what a giostra is. Giostra is a thing that you play on. And it can be everything from a Ferris wheel to this sort of thing. Now this sort of thing, and you still see these up occasionally, you swing around on these cables and try to grab the lucky ring in the middle. And I was thinking about, this is what these young people at that time were doing. They really thought they might get that golden ring. So that's what it was about. Next. I put this in here, it's a big jump. It's many, many years later. I was really quite successful, far too successful, and did very, very well. And by the time I came back to Italy, I'd already had about 61-person shows, 50, 61-person shows all over the States and elsewhere, maybe 40, maybe a little less. And I was lucky, and people talk about my great color, dazzling composition, blah, blah, blah. They were still figurative, they were still about things and people, but they kept talking about the color. So I decided to cut out the color. So for a year and a half, I painted using very, very little color. I would create a neutral color by mixing, I'll tell you the secret, ultramarine blue and raw umber, and together they become this neutral, almost black-looking color. They're not black. And then I would pass veils of color over it and try to find things. Instead of imposing the subject, I try to allow the subject to appear to me. I started saying, I'm just trying to reproduce what's out in the physical world too closely. It'll dominate my content, and I will, like every nice Jewish boy, feel like I have to be responsible to what I'm looking at. It would be dishonest to distort it too much. So therefore I said, let the picture come from the picture. Let it come from the mark. And let it come from not the exciting resonance of color against color. And I found this very, very rich. I use a system called frottage. You may know that Ernst used the term to describe it. Some of his painting, Max Ernst. And frottage is still a good friend, and I still do it every once in a while. Next. Here's another frottage. Next. This picture is, how do I describe it? It's sort of weight around my neck and also an icon, a personal icon, because I exhibited the first time in Rome. I had a show in Rome in the Galleria Il Grifo and Via di Ripeta. If you know Via di Ripeta, it was the same gallery that Carlo Levi, as a painter, exhibited in Uguatardi, Emilio Greco, a lot of very good art. I was very lucky because I had a connection for the brother of the gallerist in Orvieto. Anyway, this got reproduced in all the newspapers. Why, I don't know, but all the newspapers. We used to have the New York Herald Tribune in Rome then. It was in there, it was all the Italian. And everybody wanted to buy it. And this became the first of Maidoff's, which means paintings by Maidoff that Maidoff wants to own. And it's a great luxury to be able to say, I'm not going to sell this. Or arrogance, or whatever. But I have about 40 or 50 such paintings. Indeed, I had an exhibit in Milano about 4 or 5 years ago of Maidoff's. And I didn't actually shoot myself in the foot because I had 3 or 4, and that's more like 7 years ago. I had these laser prints of some of the paintings which I sold, were numbered and sold for fairly high fee, but I didn't sell the original. Next. And on we go. This is another frottage painting about flying. And I think I called it Fear of Flying. It was done at the same time about as a book of the same name. Next. And this is another Maidoff, which I don't sell, which I have. And if I'm to be honest about how I function my work is, I am convinced that I will find out what it's about, what I'm really doing. I'm deluding myself. I'm projecting onto what I'm thinking about. And the texture and the colors and the forms give me an excuse to speak about what I am interested in or thinking about at the moment. Next. I've been very lucky in Venice. 1977, I had a show in this gallery called Venezia Viva. And I became friends with them. And later, they also had a place called the Centro Internazionale della Grafica, where he did a suite of prints about Venice, the poetry of a Venetian poet. And one of the great things about being an artist for me was the numbers of good friends I've made in art. Usually at the end, when you're creating a toast at the table, or when I am, there's usually some other artists or people related to the arts at the table. And 9 times out of 10, I always say, to art, which brings good people together. And art has been good to me and has brought me good people. Next. Yes, there's more frottage. If at any point anybody wants to ask a question, just put your hand up in the air. Okay? Nobody. You know what it's about. Okay, next. I make pictures about what most people think about. And a lot of them happened in beds, or near beds, or around dining room tables, or in the movies. Next. A painting inspired by a friend who was a middle-aged woman who was still very attractive and a very nice lady. So I made the Goodyear blimp for her. I gave her the Goodyear because she seemed to have a very good year almost every year. Next. And a lot of these pictures are about interpersonal relationships, the way people do lie to one another, pretend, make believe they're feeling something they're not feeling, or actually, at times, bestial, and sometimes they're being frisky and funny. Next.
Somebody wants to ask the question.
Jules, are these oil or acrylics?
Some are oils and some are acrylic. I think this one is acrylic.
How did you start to let color back in?
How did I do what?
Start to let color back in.
Oh, after about 2 years of the stuff, I got bored. I got bored not having color. It's that simple.
Mm.
Can you tell us a little bit about this one? Is this about
A little bit about what?
About this particular painting?
Well, I could be, yes. It's about people, this sort of mixture of putting a person on a pedestal and preening them and being nice to them, and at the same time there's almost a threat to the way people's expressed affection is sometimes hiding other layers of feeling. That nothing's as simple as it looks in relationships, in friendships, in human relations. There's an awful lot of theater going on in daily lives. And this is frankly about two people wrapped up in one another. I see I put in a lot of this, let's move along. We still have them, huh? Okay, here's a painting that is different in style from the others, as you can see. About 32 years ago, my wife died. And some people from the room knew her. And it was very, very difficult. It was 33 years ago. And during her funeral, I mentioned this gallerist from Orvieto, this Giulio Montelucci. And during the funeral, he came, and she was 46, and I was 4 years old. And Julie came up to me and said, Jules, we're going to do a show for Jill in April. She died in December. And I said, get out of here, leave me alone, I don't want to, what are you, get out of here. And of course, when you're grieving, especially when you're not that old person, or a fairly young person dies, there's a lot of support, a lot of sympathy. But after about 3 or 4 weeks, that most of that disappeared. And most of the time I was alone with my grief. And I was probably drinking too much and very depressed and very difficult. for my children to deal with. And then I remembered the promise to Junior. So I just started painting because I promised. And therefore, I did do the painting show. I believe it was 22 paintings. The majority of them were not very good. 4 or 5 of them were quite good, and I think this probably was the best one. Next. This is a painting a little bit later where I'm trying to bury my grief. The picture's about interring your grief. Like, enough already. Move on. And that's what that's about. Then I started doing a series of paintings I called table paintings, and they're in somebody's catalog. There's some pictures of them. And some of them are very large. I sold almost all the ones that are small dimension. I don't know if we have any of it. And when I picked the table, what is it? Why the table? The table is a set in a play. I'm setting up a table, and I'm going to make things happen around the table. People do everything around the table. They cheat, they lie. They're sincere, they have fun, they laugh, they giggle. They just, everything happens around the table. And in order to expand, there are all kinds of tables. And depending on the nature of the table, sometimes to describe the kind of person who might be there. So this was a ping pong table. But the ping pong table is not being used to play ping pong. Other games are being played. I even used some gold leaf on this painting. You can see that I'm back into color again. Make a complementary color, red, green, wow, gold leaf texture, black, neutral. Next. Guess who? I decided to do a funny self-portrait. I've done about 5 or 6 self-portraits in my life. This one was, let's say, 89, I think it's 1989. I used to wear a hat a lot. Next. It is about couples being together with someone. This is an oil painting. This is a lot of my stuff is about the games people play with one another, or want to play, or actually do play. This one is not that old. Again, it's a family game, family games, family manipulating, families performing for one another. Do you notice the wheelchairs come into the picture? That gives you a hint. That means it might be fairly recent. If anybody has a question, this was shoot an arrow in the air. And I know what it's about. I help other people. Like this is primitive, primal figure.
Jules, when did you do the wheelchair painting?
When?
When? Yeah.
About 2 years ago.
Oh, reason, so.
On this one? When did you do this one?
This one's again is about that's about 4 or 5 years. There's no, I can't see any date. Next, it's a small painting. Again, this is fairly recent, it was 3 years ago. These are my sons fishing. They told me they'd gone fishing. One of my sons lives in Martha's Vineyard, and his brother was there with him. And they said, "Gone fleeing, I gone fishing, Dad." And they had 2 very funny guys. Next. I've done a certain number of pictures, as you can tell from my long discourse about what does the painter do. I do worry and wonder, guess about what does the artist do. And the artist here is doing this stuff. And I painted quite a few pictures about the artist in the studio, the artist in the model. Because in a certain sense, being an artist is a totally bizarre thing to try to do. So I painted a lot of pictures about saying, in some cases saying, I know this dog loves me more because I'm painting him. And so on.
You seem to use a lot
Pardon me?
You seem to use a lot of the primary colors, the red, yellow, and blue. Are they right from the tube in these recent ones?
No.
No.
Usually they're somewhat modified. And even if they are right from the tube, they usually are affected by my pulling color through them and texture. It's very rare that's pure. I mean, in that, I mean, what's pure? There's no pure. There's a little bit of pure alizarin in the shoe. There's a little bit of pure yellow in the yellow thing hanging down. But the majority of these colors are very low in intensity and modified with the complementary. If you want to technically, it's really, although it seems very bright, 90% of paint of the color on this thing is fairly a modified version of a color rather than its full suite. And usually it's complementary to reduce its intensity. And I'm always amused by and always have loved the sea and what people do by the sea. Because people, I keep thinking about, I don't know if you know who Burt Law was, but he was an American comedian. And he used to have a series of short films they do before the regular movies. And he had this thing, he'd come out and say, people is the funniest animals. And it really is true, we are the funniest animals in the world. We do the silliest things for the silliest of reasons. And a lot of that comes out at the beach by the sea. And I grew up not that far from Long Island Sound in the Bronx, and we were there all summer long. And it wasn't a glamorous place to be, but it was the sea. And since yes?
Jules, when you start a painting like this, do you have an image when you start of what the painting is going to be, or do you just kind of start and let it develop?
No, I have no idea.
You have no idea?
Most of the time, like 95% of the time, I have no idea. I don't think about series, I thought about something I just did. I draw constantly in my books, but I just believe that I will find something that I'm thinking about. I can't invent somebody else's thing. I use stimuli. Yes.
Do you do any preparatory sketches, or do you go straight to the canvas?
I do more drawings from my paintings than drawings for my paintings. I very rarely do a drawing before a painting. I have done so, but it's very rare. It's no fun. And I guess that's, if I'm not surprised, if I'm not stimulated, if I'm feeling like I'm executing, if I'm some sort of a gifted, skilled craftsperson, that does not interest me. I get bored. And, And then I play with different themes, like this is the, I forget what I call it, but some sort of enunciation. Huh?
It's called the Annunciation.
I thought I called it something like elsewhere. Okay. Like, and for those of you who are religious, do not think I'm being irreligious. I think that miracles happen all the time. I think that a woman alone in a kitchen might suddenly realize, wow, that might not be that she knows that she's going to have the Son of God, but that Son is going to be God. But it can be like an overwhelming insight and feeling. And I think that burying mystical or overwhelming sensations is a symptom of our time, that we don't know how to be in touch with our amazing feelings. Next. Again, this is a cover of a catalog I had for a museum show I had at here in Florence about 8 years ago. What's the name of it? Come on. Marini Museum, you know it? I hope you've been over there to see that show. It's very interesting. In any case, this was a cover for it because I thought it was a nifty picture. Nifty is a very important word. Things are nifty or they aren't nifty. And nifty is really good. Nifty means, that's the way it had to be. And I was thinking about it because I used to have this house in the country with a swimming pool. Like that for 40 years or so. And you often have people come and play and swim and it's more silliness happens around the swimming pool than in most other places. It's a little bit of a version, as I was talking about being by the sea. But what happens at the swimming pool often is that people do things as a joke that aren't a joke. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen people laugh while they did something terrible to somebody at my swimming pool. So in a way, this is my way of documenting the prevalence of cruelty masked as fun. I guess that's its real title. Next. This is sort of the artist and the model. The artist and the model is another theme I've used a great deal. I've used it as a theme much more than I've actually had models. Because it's this funny situation of one-on-one people locked in this strange space, supposedly trying to do something important together, like make a picture. And one is supposed to be passive, the other is supposed to be active. And it's, I don't know how many of you have ever had that situation either as the model or as the artist, but it's a very odd one. It can be bizarre or it can be uplifting. It's a very strange ritual, very, very strange. Next. I painted this for my wife for her birthday. It's called Happy Birthday. I think it was 2 years ago. And it was, actually I had a show based around her birthday at McCartney Gallery. But we've had a pretty good run of being ridiculously funny and happy and silly. Next. This one, another one which is about a Valentine's Day card for your wife. Here's another one. This is another one about our swimming pool. And this is about my 2 stepchildren and our dog. We had this dog who would run around the swimming pool barking, wanting you to splash water in his face. And this went on and on and on. And became, so this is sort of a celebration and memory of Spilo the Man. This is a painting about, again, this comes out of my life. It's when my children, my grandchildren, the sort of games that are played within the family, favoritism, vanity, worship. Next. There's a painting about, again, about vanity. We have a hell of a lot of paintings, right? I didn't know. That's the artist, a card plate. It's the artist. Because it's always a gamble, so it's a kind of a mass self-portrait. It's a very big thing.
How do you decide when a painting is finished?
But I don't know what else to do. I think you usually know. I think I usually know. If I don't know, it sits there. I have 5 or 6 paintings that have been out for like 3 months, so I can go back and forth. There's another family picture called The Argument at the Lunch Table in the Summer. And this is another painting called Shoot the Artist. It's my version of Shoot the Piano Player. And it's about, I think, what a silly role it is to try to paint when so many people shoot down the piano player, saying, the artist, saying all sorts of absurd things that has nothing to do with the artist. There's an awful lot of dilettantish, pretentious language about being an artist, so I think it destroys a lot of artists. Next. There's I don't know if you can see, there's a very happy love painting. Nobody left. It is. It's about these 2 monkeys that just love one another. And this is kind of a flying carpet. And sometimes I really feel like I'm on some sort of flying carpet. Other times I wish I had one. This one is about the conquest of Mexico. And I don't know where the hell it came from. It's very unlike me to do it. But I did it. I don't know if it was reading something or whatever, but the picture started telling me that's what it was about. So it became the conquest of Mexico. This is about, I don't know if you know, but in the back, there's sort of an elevator. You see that little cage in the back? And it goes up and down. In the front is this clownish person who's been leaning on a pillow that really is a person, a female person. And it's about, no matter how luxurious, sexy, gratifying this world of life is, there's always that elevator in the back there. And either you go up or you go down. Just sort of playing around with the idea of this moment and eternity. Next. This is just what it is. This one is based on a real event. It's in Croatia, part of my family, and there's this lovely beach, and there were all these women lying, a lot of them were without tops on and whatnot. And this guy kept walking up and down, lying down on the sand near them, looking up their crotches and doing all this sort of weird wire. He never touched anything, these wires. And I couldn't say or do anything because he hadn't done anything. But it just drove me crazy and made me feel like how weird and wild people's sexual urges are. So that's him. This is called September in the Bronx. And this is an old one. It's about what we used to do on Saturdays in the Bronx. This is like when I'm 15 or so, or less. And the figure on the right is a boy with a gas mask on, because during the war we had air raid drills. In the back there's the marquee of the movie house we used to go to. And then there was this guy doing some sort of ritual with a candle. And a figure, a naked figure lying down, you can't see her head. And this little guy with the gas mask on is really looking at her hard. So it's about when you were a teenager or preteen, growing up in the Bronx. There were all these things with the great movies, the sexy ladies, there was the war stuff, and the magic. Next. This is another one of those about being an artist. Next. This is painting, I believe I don't own anymore. I think it was sold. It's about artists around the table, including Marie-Laurence back there. You know her? Laurence, she's great. I think I brought too many pictures, so I think we should. I'm not kidding. Let's just go through them. We've already shown them this one. We didn't show them this one. But go back. This was a birthday painting for myself. Next. This is my on Monet, or it's a shark visits Monet's water lilies. And again, it came out of material. Next. They just called it, you've heard of the turkey trot? This is the tortoise trot. Tortoise trot. This is about mothers teaching daughters how to be a woman. This is by the sea in the evening. This is the woman painter. This is another painting by the sea. People do many silly and wonderful things by the sea. They forget themselves by the sea. You can imagine anything when you're by the sea. Next. This is a return about a year and a half ago to Frottage. I'd left Frottage. And I kept thinking about that painting that everybody wanted to buy, you know, when they said, I wonder what I could do a Frottage again. And I did one, and the answer is yes, I can do a Frottage again, and it was sort of fun. Next.
What makes it a frottage? What does that word refer to?
Frottage it means to beat with something. Frottage. It's like it's another way to whip. They used to beat a rug.
Mm-hmm.
It's frottage.
But I mean, what in the painting?
Huh?
What in the painting technique lets you call it that?
Well, that's how I get the paint look.
He
I put down one color, then I take up crumpled paper and I beat it,
Oh, okay.
or anything, lift paint off while it's wet. That's a good question. I think people may have, but I thought everyone sort of knew that.
No, not at all.
But if you don't know it,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know it. Of course, you might want all immediately look up Frottage. This is my studio. I think some of the postbacks, any postbacks here? Well, tomorrow you'd see it in 3 dimensions. And that's my website. And Before I close, any questions before we close down?
Are you painting sitting down these days, Jules?
What do you think, though?
How is that? Did you always paint sitting down? Because your paintings are so full of energy, and I wonder if that's difficult to drum up.
Less energy, believe me.
That's what?
No, but you find ways to get around it, you know, you pour paint, you get somebody to help you. Molly sometimes helps you.
Do you prefer to let people bring their explanations to your work? What they see in it before you explain? Like just to let it resonate on its own?
Do I let it resonate without explaining?
Yeah, do you prefer to let people bring their own beings to the work to see?
Well, when it's in a gallery or in a place or in my studio, I don't make it talk about it. They just look at it. Then they may ask me questions, and the conversation starts, which is very different. I mean, it isn't a natural situation, but in my home, in my studio, or in a gallery, the person will ask you a question and reveal as much as the question that you think they want to know. Anybody else? Yes.
You use the word nifty.
Nifty.
And for me, it's not. I mean, nifty is not a particularly a quality or a characteristic of Florence. And I wonder.
Nifty's Bronxese, and it means terrific.
Right.
It means terrific.
It meant terrific 50 years ago. Yeah.
It still does to me.
But I was. Do you think of yourself? Is it relevant to you that you're in Florence? You feel yourself as some things.
Oh, that's a different question.
Yeah.
And I've spoken about that many times before. I think that being someplace else than where you know the signals is very valuable for anyone, but particularly for an artist. For an artist to be someplace where you have to work to understand what's going on around you is very good for your artwork, because you see beyond the obvious signals that you're used to, and you try to get through the facade into what is below it. It's very useful to also find out the different ways other societies do the same things that you do. You know, the different ways of being religious in one place and another, the different ways of being cool, the different ways of being sexy, the different ways of being provocative, you know, pardon me?
Nifty.
Niftiness is
Always the
you're
same.
born with. You're born with
Shit, I
niftiness.
missed.
Anyone else?
Well, with Julia's question about Florence as a source of inspiration, I mean, wouldn't that be one of the reasons, the main reason, that you founded SACI here in Florence, for people to come from all over the world to be inspired by the city to paint or create art in any medium here?
I didn't hear the first part.
Well, I was bouncing off Julia Rose's question to you about Florence as a source of inspiration. And would that not be one of the main reasons you founded SACI here?
Yes, I mean,
inspiration of the city for artists in many mediums.
there's a long response to the short one. The long one is that I happen to go to a great free university in New York City, City College of New York. I had great teachers, and it was clear to me, from especially one of Bernard Myers, who's a great art historian, that the past had a lot of answers for the present, that art doesn't stand still, and that one of the places one of the most dynamic revolutions in art happened was Florence. He described it as a cultural revolution. I mean, his explanation of Renaissance was that was a lot of things happening all together. These people were moving it. I mean, think of the people that Vasari wrote about during his life. These were amazing people, and they were going from A to Z. They were going from 0 to 1,000 in a few, you know, in the lifetimes of 3 or 4 people. The way art changed in this city, well, it wasn't just art. I mean, everything changed. But Mary has written on that. Why did the Renaissance happen in Florence here in those days? Why? And why in Florence? And of course, the answers are socio-economic. Any other questions? Thank you very much.